So I wanted to address this notion that I keep seeing pop up after the conclusion of episode 65 in particular. And this notion is that Willy Tiber and Erwin Smith are very similar leaders. They are the same person, for lack of a better term here. And I see this notion and assertion popping up quite frequently within YouTube comments. A lot of people making their comparison based off of the plan that we saw enacted in episode 64 and then explained in episode 65 by Willy Tiber, and comparing it to previous plans that Erwin Smith had been a part of, specifically his plan along with the scouts to capture Annie in the Stohas district. Now, I do believe that these two characters are very different on many levels, and I wanted to highlight my reasons and my rebuttal really to some of these commenters and some of these people that think that these characters are intrinsically linked, because I simply believe that they are not. So that's what I'm going to go in on in this video. So hopping right into it here, I wanted to compare the plans of Willy Tiber and Erwin Smith, specifically for the Stohas district, and then obviously the Willys Speech. So starting with Willys Speech here, I believe that the difference here, well, getting into it with Willy, is that Willy considers those who are going to be sacrificed, i.e. the Eldians and some of the other people in attendance, but really the Eldians. He is quoted saying that he wants the stadium or the place outside to be as packed as possible, people as close together as possible, because he knows, we find out, that he's most likely going to be attacked along with them and they are going to be slaughtered. This is how he's going to bring all the nations to rally to their side. Now, to be fair, he does say that he has to die within it. So I do tip my hat in that respect that he's willing to give his own life, but that doesn't necessarily justify his intentions. It doesn't justify his ideology here. And that's what I want to get into. So he believes that the Eldians deserve to be sacrificed to provide for what he believes is the greater good. But the only issue here is that Willy is a very twisted ideology, and his sense of self-hatred for what he perceives he and the Eldians are really spawn of the devil, he is projecting onto more of the Eldian people, right? The entire intent behind Willy's mission is for the people to be slaughtered, right? If the people are not slaughtered and he does not die along with them, then this plan fails. If he only dies, then fair enough. There might be an argument to be made that, okay, they rally. But he really needs to put the nail in the coffin with the slaughtering of all of these people. So if they are not slaughtered, his mission goes to crap. It fails. All of this to further violence and bloodshed, though, in the name of Marley and in this twisted self-hatred for himself and other Eldians. Now, I've seen people bring up the argument that Willy Tiber does truly care for the Eldians. And the more I relook at this scene, I do see the points towards that, right? He, in his conversation with Commander Theo, does say that he's tried to make amends, or he's tried to make better connections, I guess, with some of the neighboring nations when it comes to Eldians, to have them look at them in a little bit of a different light, right? And he, when questioned by Theo as to why he's going to go through with this, why he needs to kill them, he is shook for a minute and says, Theo, you got to go with me on this here, right? So there is something to be said at the end of the day about Willy's hesitation to go through with this plan. He does think it is the only way to do this. So while he might mourn the loss internally of these people, that doesn't stop him from enacting this plan, right? In slaughtering these people and making the slaughter of these people really the primary goal, along with his death, of his mission in order to unite these people against paradise. Now, if he cares about the Eldians, we have two ways, right? If he really doesn't care about the Eldians here, if he truly believes that they are spawn of the devil, they are beyond redemption, then this is a pretty cut and dry argument, right? Because what he's doing is uniting nations against Paradise Island, but in effect, Eldians. And basically what this does is they destroy them and they completely subjugate the Eldians for the foreseeable future, unless some sort of crazy thing happens again, which it doesn't seem like he's banking on. It seems like his previous speech would indicate, because he wants to hold the wheel, as it were, that the way things are now, that Marley needs to keep progressing in their military might, and they need to keep subjugating the Eldians as to not let the Eldians break free and then start slaughtering other people and each other, right? That's what he believes is going to happen. So that's the pretty easy argument if he believes that Eldians are beyond redemption, right? Now, to address the second argument here, that he really does believe that they are maybe not devils. He wants to strengthen their ties with neighboring nations. The only issue here for me is that Willy, if this is the presumption, is effectively doing the same thing, right, as the first scenario, because what he has to do is annihilate Paradise Island, right? All the inhabitants who are Eldians of Paradise Island by selling this cheap ploy to these people that this is the whole world is on edge of survival, or we destroy Paradise Island, which is simply not the case, right? Because Erwin's beef, Paradise Island's beef, really just Erwin's for all we know right now until he sent those letters, is with Marley specifically, right? This is a ploy to get the founding Titan, which Marley sure as hell knows they have to do, in order to, in the future, advance their military to be on par with neighboring nations in the event that another war breaks out, right? So this isn't about them surviving, right? This is about him keeping the status quo, him making Marley's military relevant while also subjugating the Eldian people, right? Not letting them kind of break out under the thumb of oppression that they've been put under. So he kind of sells this lie to all these people that this is for their mutual survival, when it's really about the mutual destruction of the people of Paradise Island. He's just really putting the cherry on top by uniting all of these nations, right? All these nations don't necessarily have to get involved in this until he sells them on this speech. It's really Marley against Paradise Island, against these Eldians that inhabit it. So he's selling a lie to these people, and that's my issue, and that's going to be a big role in why I think he is very different from Erwin Smith in his leadership tactics and who he is as a person deep down. So we've established that if he really does believe that the Eldians are devils, then obviously his intent to slaughter them is malicious in intent. He wants to destroy them. He's projecting his self-guilt. If he really believes that Eldians are, deserving of life, he's still not thinking that they're deserving of freedom. And I think that's my biggest thing here, is that if you want to call Erwin Smith the devil, right, I call Willy a self-proclaimed God. And in this situation, I believe that being a self-proclaimed God is worse than self-proclaiming yourself as the devil, right? Because in that sense, you understand what it is that you're doing is maybe inherently wrong, or that there are losses to be had within the plan, but there's no way back. When you're posing yourself as God, you're posing yourself as the arbiter and judge of everything that's going to go on in the name of what you deem to be the highest good, but not everyone else might deem that, right? There's plenty of Eldians that would dissent when it comes to this plan, and obviously he's not going to tell them that, but he's sure as hell fine with having plenty of them slaughtered in this stadium, this scenario, in order to enact this war, this annihilation of another people, all to continue the subjugation of his people into the future and prop Marley up as a central military power moving forward. So Willy's moves are based off a twisted ideology, a sense of self-hatred that is presupposed on all other Eldians, and a mission that has its root within lies. Now let's get to Erwin, because that was kind of a rant on Willy there. So Erwin, on the other hand, and I'm going to refer to the Stoas district with Annie, the plan to capture Annie, because that seems to be the one scenario that is continually brought up when they're trying to compare the two leaders to one another. But I did quickly want to address the fact that a lot of people were also comparing him to Willy to Erwin, in the sense that Erwin also has led many soldiers, and soldiers have died under his wing. But I quickly wanted to address that because I think that's a kind of weak argument. And number one, Erwin is not absolved of any guilt, right? That when people die under his command, being that he's the leader, he has to assume that responsibility. So I'm not absolving Erwin of any sin in this regard. He's referred to as the devil, right? He's had to do some shady things in order to pursue what he deems is the highest good, and why I believe that is actually the highest good given the context of the show as opposed to Willy. But I'll get into that in a second. But addressing the soldiers here, the soldiers that are with him are willing participants in this, right? They are willingly volunteering to fight and potentially die for the survival and freedom, which is a heavy word here, which I'm going to get into, of humanity collectively, right? These are people that understand that Erwin's the leader, that in the Scouts, that their job is incredibly dangerous and that they could die. But they do that knowingly with the intent of hopefully freeing humanity. And when I say humanity, you have to understand that these people inside the walls believe that they are genuinely the last people left on Earth, right? So this is an all or nothing game. This isn't some sort of, oh, well, maybe if we, come up with some peace treaty or something like that. They're Titans, right? They're Titans at this point. They're not capable, as far as they know, obviously, of some sort of, peace treaty, some plan, right? So obviously that's pretty self-evident. But the point is that this is an all or nothing game, right? This is the sum is either 0 or it's 1. They live or they die. So these people that are rallying behind Erwin, these soldiers, are doing it from their own free will. That's pretty abundantly clear. Not to mention that Erwin, when it comes to all the plans that involve the military, is always putting himself on the front lines. He is always subjugating himself to equal amounts of danger, if not more, from time to time. When it comes to, from the start, right, the plans with his final speech, right, to go there and then charging. He is right out in the front, right, getting bombarded with rocks just as all the other people are. When he enacts the plan to stage the coup because he realizes that their political system has been usurped by people that have effectively become puppets, he is the one that is sentenced to death in that scenario, right? He is fully ready to face that death, right? When he is in the Stoas district and the military police have him at gunpoint saying, we can execute you right now, he goes, okay, execute me, but you're going to have to assume command of this, right? You're going to have to be the person that takes charge. I could go on here when he gets his arm bitten off, right? When he leads the Titans into Berthold and Reiner when they're trying to capture Eren, and he gets his arm bit and he continues to tell the people to charge forward because if not for Eren, they're not going to survive. This is an all or nothing thing. So the examples are there, right? The examples are there of Erwin constantly taking lead and leading from the front when it comes to fighting and his strategic involvement in it. So that's a pretty easy argument to address in my personal opinion, but getting into the Stoas district, right? So in regards to the plan to capture Annie, Erwin makes his plan, and this is the difference from Willy, Erwin makes his plan not with the sole intent of killing his people, but of smoking out Annie, who, let's be real, would not have even thought of falling for that plan or trap under any other circumstance, right? She's part of the military police, so that's where she's stationed. She's obviously aware of what's going on because she's effectively acted as a spy this whole time for the past, 4 years, however long it is when they capture her. And she's not stupid by any means. She's a very smart individual. So she's not going to fall for some sort of half-baked plan to capture her. She's going to have to think that everything is going as planned, right? That this is just a normal day at the office. So this is, and again, I need to reiterate the point that this is a all or nothing plan. If they do not capture Annie, or at least stop the female Titan who has been laying a butt whooping on Eren this entire time up until this point, it's done, right? Eren is the plan B to do this. The plan A is to try and capture her without transforming. Even part of the plan is to try and put her underground so that it mitigates the risk for potential casualties, for civilian casualties within this. But this isn't a plan to say, okay, Annie transforms and we're hoping that she kills as many people as possible to unite these people against the Titans or whatever. This is different, right? Because these people are already effectively united, I guess, in a sense. I use that term loosely, but you understand my point. It's them or the Titans. So they're kind of all in agreement here that Titans are not a good thing that has been happening to them for the past 100 years, right? They're if it comes down to, okay, let's get rid of these Titans or you die, like clearly they're going to choose the former, right? So that's a pretty easy thing to state there. I'm pretty confident in that assertion, but this is my point, right? That the plan is not to have Annie kill as many people as possible. The plan is to have Annie not be suspicious of anything that's going wrong, and then try and mitigate the potential for any sort of casualties at all, right? So again, obviously this doesn't work as planned, and you can argue that, well, just the fact that you were willing to do a plan B, the fact that there were people that were potentially going to die, yeah, that's where I get into Erwin is not absolved of his sins for sure. But again, you have to remember this is an all or nothing scenario. This is a sum 0 or sum 1 game. This is either they capture Annie or they defeat Annie or humanity dies, right? Humanity is losing bad at this point. So it's them or it's us. That's it. This isn't about, to relate it back to Willy, this isn't about these people need to die as part of the mission to then slaughter Paradise Island with the combined might of all nations. He's selling a lie that it's about their survival, but he knows it's not the world-ending scenario. Because if Eren could truly control those Titans, and his intent was to destroy the people of the world out of some vengefulness, then he would have done that already, right? That's clearly the game here. The point, the fact that he didn't do it means that his beef is with Marley, and now Willy's just pulling all these other people into it. So this is genuinely about the survival in Erwin's case, and about a political maneuver in Willy's. So yeah, the plan wasn't to have her destroy as many people as possible, right? This way, they're able to save many more lives in the future, but also grant them freedom and have them go in the pursuit of truth, right? This is a huge thing that I wanted to highlight here, and that's why I said before, survival and freedom of humanity is very relevant. You could argue that Willy says, okay, well, getting these people killed, at the end of the speech is going to save many more lives in the future, right? In so much as killing these people, we're going to destroy Paradise Island. We're going to avoid more bloodshed on Marley's side, whatever the case might be, and more people live in the future. But that doesn't, for the reasons I've stated before, that doesn't ensure their freedom. That doesn't ensure that the Eldians are now released from the oppressive thumb of the Marleyans, right? If anything, it just perpetuates that suffering and that subjugation and that oppression of those people, because Willy believes that they are worthy of being punished for that, and that they are not worthy of their freedom, because if they're given it, then they're going to fight again, and the whole cycle continues here. But again, Willy is playing God in the scenario because he is stripping the ability of choice from the Eldians in this. If Paradise Island is destroyed, for the reasons I've mentioned, the Eldians are still suffering in that sense. They might be alive, but I'll tell you what, a lot of them will probably wish they were dead. So that, I think, is a big thing when talking about this, that freedom plays a giant role in this besides just survival, which is definitely something that's relevant, but not the only thing that is relevant. And I believe that Erwin is moving towards that. He's tipping the scale towards not only survival, but of freedom. And I think that's very relevant in this case. So, like I mentioned before, Willy's plan perpetuates lies while Erwin seeks to find truth, right? There's a quote that I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it on me here, but from Erwin when they find out that the Titans are potentially humans. And there's a scenario here in which you watch it and you look at it and you're like, oh man, is Erwin really kind of twisted in the head here? Because he smiles, right? And Levi goes, why the hell are you smiling? And Erwin goes, because we are one step closer towards truth, right? And it's kind of you look at it at face value and you go, well, that was pretty twisted, right? The fact that you've been killing people this whole time. But I understand Erwin in this moment, and I think it really highlights a lot about his character, is that Erwin in the final analysis is doing what he is doing in pursuit of truth, right? To not have these people subjugated by others and oppressed and fed false information by their own government, by Marley's government, etc. These are people that have to discover the truth and then make choices on their own. He's giving them the freedom and the potential to be something more rather than stifling their progress because of thoughts of potential war and calamity down the line, right? He is saying that truth is the ultimate arbiter here, right? Truth is what needs to be fought for beyond freedom and humanity, because you don't have freedom and humanity if not for truth. If your entire ideology, if all of your presuppositions are based off of lies, then that only begets more lies, right? And these people don't actually get to move forward. They keep on getting thrown into this endless cycle of torture and hate and oppression and violence, right? Erwin is constantly seeking the truth. Erwin's whole mission is to enlighten the people, his own people, the people that he knows of, in order that they may make better decisions and come to grips with that truth so that they can move past it and move forward and grow as a people, right? Where Willy has already made the assumption that Eldians are beyond growth, that they cannot grow anymore, and that the truth will not set them free, but the truth will only perpetuate said violence, and that it is impossible for them to move on from here. The only way to keep this as the status quo and, not rock the boat is to feed these people more lies about themselves, about their heritage, their culture, and also lie to all the other people in attendance in order to get them to unite against a people that are really not deserving of destruction, right? For all the reasons that have been mentioned, and throughout the course of the first 3 seasons. I mean, I don't have to go too far into that to really justify my point, but that's really a huge thing here, is that to highlight these 2 points. Erwin seeks truth while Willy perpetuates lies in his plan. And Erwin's plan, although involving potential civilian casualties, is not made with the intent of more civilian casualties, right? That is a outlier. That is a potential in the plan, which does not make Erwin guiltless, but also is something that is trying to be avoided at all costs. And again, this is a all or nothing scenario. It is either this plan works or they die. Willy's plan is not in that scenario right here, right? He's fed a lie to these people. So, and then I wanted to get to my last point here, which I think is also very important. And at the end of the day, that's that Erwin honors the lives of his comrades and his people, both alive and dead, understanding that each of those lives has inherent value, right? He realizes that while the loss of life is inevitable, that each one of those lives is in fact a loss, right? So this is something that Willy, again, addressing my first point, I believe is missing the mark with, in the sense that he refers, if again, you take the first argument that he genuinely believes these people are devils, then obviously he believes these people are lower than Marleyans, they're lower than most of the other or all of the other nations, and that if they die, it is not as big of a deal as if somebody else dies, because their value is inherently lower. Now, I truly do believe, when you peel back the layers, that in a twisted sense, he does believe this, right? Because you could, again, use the argument that it's like, well, he does care because he's trying to improve relations and all that kind of stuff. But I still believe that he ranks the Eldians' lives with less inherent value because of the reasons I've stated. This ends in their subjugation or their destruction. There is no scenario in Willy's plan where Eldians get to formulate their own sense of ideals and truth and, come together and celebrate their culture and become a self-sustaining nation once more, right? It is either they are oppressed or they die. Those are the only, the good side of it is the oppression side, right? That's the best case scenario. So I truly do believe that Willy, even if he doesn't admit that or whatever, now we might not ever know based off the knowledge we have, but that he genuinely believes that the Eldians' lives hold less inherent value than those of other nations, of Marley specifically. Whereas Erwin truly believes that the lives of his comrades, and this is really brought to life in his final speech before they charge at the Beast Titan, he believes that all of the comrades, either alive or dead, that he has had, that all of those lives truly do have inherent value. And while he can be very stoic and stone-faced when in the face of danger or in the face of death, because he's seen so much, he truly does care for the people that die under his watch, right? He takes on this role, this heavy burden, with the knowledge that it is something that not every man or woman can do, right? That, and again, this is why he says, when he's held at gunpoint by the military police, okay, do you want to take over? Right? This is a scenario where it's like there are only a few people. There are only a handful of people that could stomach this and still care for these people without being a complete sociopath and be able to continue on in life. And I don't believe that Erwin is crazy by any sense. I don't believe that he is a sociopath. I truly do believe that he values the lives of these people so that every time one of them is lost, it is an actual loss. Whereas that Willy believes that a lot of these lives are incredibly expendable. So, in the end, Erwin gives his own life not to realize his dream, but to give up on it. He prioritized the true greater good over his own desires in the end, while Willy's death and the death of the innocents involved only helped to further his twisted dream while ensuring the destruction and continued oppression of the Eldians. Erwin sacrificed himself so that others would go on living, while Willy sacrificed himself so that more could die or be oppressed, I would like to add. So this is the final point here, right? In the final analysis, we see that Erwin, in his conversation with Levi, basically states that I am willing, begrudgingly, to be fair, he's not keen on the idea of giving up his dream. I mean, I don't blame him along with anyone else, but in the final analysis, he does wind up giving up on his dream, the dream of the ultimate truth to him, right? If we've established that truth, freedom, and the survival of humanity are the three main components that separate Erwin from Willy, because those are the three most important things to Erwin. And I would probably rank truth among them as pretty damn high. This is his ultimate goal, right? To find out what is in that basement, to find out what has been hidden from him and all of these people for his entire life, and to finally see if there's something more than what they have currently in front of them. So this is a huge deal for Erwin. This is his life's mission, really. And he has to give it up, right? And it's not, and he very well could have said, no, I'm not going to give it up. I'm going to have them charge. I'm not going to charge, etc. But he realizes that these people are not going to do this if not for him, right? In order for them to actually give up their lives, he has to be the first one, again, to mirror my point before. He has to be the first one, the one on the front lines. He has to lead from the front in this scenario. Otherwise, nobody follows, right? And he has to be the first one willing to give up his life to do so. And so he gives up on his dream, and he gives up on his dream so that others can go on living, and so that others can have dreams of their own, and so that others can discover the truth and make something of it, right? This isn't some selfish goal where he needs to find the truth and only him. Otherwise, he doesn't believe that the Eldians or the people on the island are capable of doing anything with it. Whereas I would then again argue that Willy is the complete opposite, right? So Erwin sacrifices himself and his dream in the final analysis in order to potentially fulfill the dreams of others. And Willy, to flip it back here on its head, is giving him his life up, which I said is fair enough. I guess that could be commendable in some way, shape, or form, right? But he's doing that to ensure, again, the oppression and the stifling of other people's dreams, i.e. Eldians, in the foreseeable future, whether it's through their death and genocide or whether it's through their subjugation and oppression, right? He is basically stifling anybody else's dream. He's stifling the truth. He's saying that you guys are not worthy to know the actual truth, and you guys are not worthy to have your own dreams, because anytime that you guys had truth and you guys had your own dreams, you screwed it up, and I'm not letting that happen again. So in so dying and having all of these other people die, my dream is actually being fulfilled. And you could argue, okay, wait, well, that's not his dream, right? Like he's doing this with, he's holding the wheel here, but like, obviously if there was another scenario, he doesn't want this to be the first thing put forward, and fair enough. But in the end, he is willing to see this plan through. And I do believe that if his hierarchy of values really indicates anything here, it is that this plan is the best plan moving forward. So effectively, I use the term dream as something similar here to perpetuate this idea, right? That his highest value right now is making sure that the Marleyan military is up to snuff and that the Eldians are subjugated or killed, as to not have them take back the reins of power once again, because he believes they are undeserving of it. So you want to call it dream, you want to call it something else. That is the goal here. That is the end goal, is for Marley to be standing on top, or at least not to fall behind, and Eldians to be subjugated under their thumb. And if they are killed in the process, so be it. the sins that they have committed are too grave to have any sort of reconciliation when it comes to them. So these are the points that I have. Again, just to recap here, we have the three main differences and what I believe are the three main goals of Erwin, where they are inverted with Willy, but that is the pursuit of survival, which is I start with that because it's the shakiest one, because you could say that Willy again is going for the survival of Eldians, but again, then we get into the other 2 points where I believe Willy falls off, because it's not only about survival, although that is very important when it comes to Erwin and their ideologies, right? And the second is freedom, which this is where I believe they definitely take divergent paths in the sense that Willy is willing to strip the freedoms of all of the Eldians, whether it is through their death or subjugation for the foreseeable future, and in his eyes, hopefully forever, right? So that they don't assume command again and retain their freedom or get it back and then start what he believes would be another war with each other and other nations, etc. So he's stripping their freedom from them while Erwin is trying to grant freedom to them. And how are they doing this? Erwin is trying to grant them freedom and survival through truth, while Willy is trying to give them survival and strip their freedom through lies. And that is the biggest kicker for me in the end, that Willy's goals perpetuate more lives and subjugation and the taking of freedoms, while Erwin's goals are towards truth, humanity's survival, and the giving of freedoms to these people, right? And I think that is the biggest non-parallel, I guess you could say, the biggest difference rather between these two characters. So that is my rant. That is my rebuttal. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you guys are liking this video. Also, make sure you guys are commenting your thoughts down below. Obviously, be civil with it. I understand that I may be in the minority when it comes to these propositions, but that doesn't mean that anyone has to be not civil about it, right? So make sure if you guys are partaking in this discourse that you guys are being civil and you guys are being respectful of other people's opinions, myself and other people in the comment section included. That way we can have the exchange of ideas and move towards the truth, right? To mirror Erwin Smith and what I believe are his goals. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, stay classy, folks. Peace.